third dialogue for the day called Ice Age, which delves into the convergence of internet, communication, and entertainment over the years. Internet services was launched in India in 1995 by VSNL, and it was open to private players only in 1998. Thus came the first wave of convergence between internet and communication from 2000 to 2010 with the launch of Google, Gmail, and Facebook. Internet penetration was just 0.5% in 2000 and reached 18% in 2014. And with the launch of Reliance Jio 4G in 2015, the user base doubled in just 2 years to 35% by July 2017. Today, India with 462 million internet users is the second largest user base in the world, only after China. Several businesses in India are now spending up to 15% of their total ad budgets on digital ad platforms, as it is 30 to 40% cheaper to advertise. Consumer behavior is captured through data analytics with precision, which helps advertisers in running targeted ad campaigns and helps them stay relevant in a rapidly evolving environment. Advent of Reliance Jio 4G led to a stiff price war amongst the incumbents and drove down the data cost to almost a fifth of the existing prices. Fast and high-quality data services led to a surge in digital consumption and thus brought the convergence of entertainment with internet and communication. With significant increase in mobile data speed and falling smartphone prices, digital video has now become mainstream. This has led to a drastic shift in content available on OTT platforms, which were earlier playing catch-up TV, to now live streaming of popular sports properties like IPL and commissioning original web series. Subscription-based players like Netflix and Amazon Prime Video entered India in full force and are now producing localized content in collaboration with Indian artists, leading to more avenues of monetization by content makers. However, we are yet to determine whether India will remain an ad-based market or will it migrate to subscription-based market. And now we shall watch a clip on how several forces in unicasting, entertainment, and telecom industry are working. Can we have the clip, please?
1.3 billion Indians cannot be left behind as the world enters a new era. It is this opportunity to transform the lives of 1.3 billion Indians that motivated Reliance to enter this space, and Jio is the result. I have no doubt that with the launch of Jio, India's rank will go up from 150th to among the top 10 in the world in the next few years.
To take on Netflix and other streaming sites, Amazon India has launched its Prime Video service in the country.
Something that we wanted to try for a long time, and we're very thankful to Amazon for giving us the opportunity to do this.
Today is a historic day. Jio has crossed the 100 million customer mark.
The war's not won.
I would like now to welcome Paula McGlynn, founder of Bharatiya Digital Party, also called Bhariba, which is the first Marathi language YouTube channel focused on entertainment. Bhariba also won the Z Talkies Marathi Comedy Award for Best Web Content. Paula. Next, I'd like to call Mr. Gaurav Gandhi, Chief Operating Officer of Viacom 18 Digital Ventures, and heads OTT platform called Voot. Next, I will welcome Mr. Vidyadhar Kale, head of agencies Facebook. Vidyadhar has 18 years of experience working with businesses in Singapore and India in consumer goods, technology, telecommunications, and financial institutions. Key brands and firms he has worked with are Vodafone, L'Oreal, P&G, Nokia, Samsung, and Unilever. Currently leading agency relationships for Facebook India and specializing in communication planning, setting up teams, media planning, and buying. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Zulfikar Khan, Chief Revenue Officer and Business Head, Eros International Media Limited. He has rich experience of 18 years in the industry and has worked with Star India for a long stretch of 16 years in ad sales. And lastly, but not the least, Mr. Malay Dikshit, Chief Communications Officer, Tata Sky, responsible for brand communications, developing marketing and communication strategies, both online and offline for Tata Sky. I hand over the panel to Malay. Over to you.
Hi, good afternoon for the post-lunch conversation, and we're sure we'll make it exciting and interesting because that's our category. The ICE is as we call it. We've got, and as we were having a lunch table discussion, the ICE age is also associated with mammoths, and believe me, there are mammoths being created in this industry, in this sector, and representatives of some of those mammoths are very much with us. I'll just straight away hit off the road with shooting a question to Vidyadhar. There are different countries are in different stages of evolution in terms of where the media consumption habit is situated right now, based on which marketeers plan their budgets and their ad spends. Do you find that there will be a time soon or later when digital ad spends will supersede TV spends?
Okay. Hello everybody. This is a tough session, and all of us will try our best to keep you awake and away from mobile. So here goes.
From Facebook, you mean?
Yeah, no, that part I think I don't want them to stop from that part anyway. So yeah, very, very valid question, and I think media mix for all the marketers is a very, very critical part. So let's talk in India, and let's start with consumer, right? So of the measured media, the usual suspect, TV, print, radio, digital, outdoor, cinema, the works. If you look at the time spent, and this is the e-marketers number, so TV is about 50-55%. Digital is about 30-35%. That constitute a critical mass of this, and then the rest of the medium is about 6 to 7%, right? So that's starting from consumer. Reach number wise, we all know how TV and digital stack up, and then the rest again are on a smaller side. In spite of that, So there is a intensity as well as reach from a consumer perspective. In spite of that, if you look at the current ADEX, and then there are various estimates going. So let's go with the Group M1, right, which is say 60,000 crore is the measured India ADEX. 45,000 crore is by TV and print, right, which is about significant part of that, followed by digital, which is about 9 to 10,000 crore, and then everybody else. So this is the status, right? So the current mix does not reflect the consumption, and consumption in the form of both the dimensions, right, reach as well as intensity of consumption. So that's right. Where it is changing though is from a growth perspective. So luckily India is a market where everybody is growing, right? So there is a growth of about 10%, one of the unique markets where even print is growing. But within that, so that's the makeup which we spoke about earlier. Within that, digital is growing fast, and within that, mobile is growing significantly faster. So nobody is going hungry because everybody is growing. But if you see this makeup of pie in a year or 2 years' time, it is definitely going to change. So yes, it's a matter of time where, so digital already is the third largest medium. It's a matter of time that it becomes even more stronger and it becomes comparable to TV. So it's really a matter of time. In fact, in UK, about 2 years back, not only digital, just the mobile itself took over print spends, right? Worldwide, digital is expected to be about 40%, which means it is probably comparable or more to television. So it's a matter of time.
And what would trigger that? As in, what would be the critical tipping point which says that here, from today onwards, digital becomes a bigger part?
So one is infrastructure and consumer behavior, and then of course the work which we all do to demonstrate to the clients that their marketing dollar is working harder on digital, right? So that's one part we will probably, let's talk to the, so let's take our platform. We have 270 million people coming on a monthly basis on our platform, of which 98% of the people are coming from mobile, right? On a daily basis, there are 124 million people coming on the platform. So we are single largest reach builder as far as all the media vehicles are concerned, single largest, right? Again, 98% are coming from mobile. So it's very simple. Internet, the way it is growing, and we saw beautiful clips, so I don't need to reiterate that point. So internet is growing, and in India, internet is mobile. So just if you don't remember anything, and that's one thing I want to take home is internet is mobile, and that is changing. So there's a worldwide study which says that when the smartphone penetration goes to a tipping point, that becomes a very, very kind of a critical mass. So currently, if you see, we are about 50-60% is smartphone, and what you saw, even if it is technically feature phone, it's a intelligent feature phone or whatever it is. So that is going to change, right? That part is going to become so formidable from a reach and time spent, even more stronger than it's become the most obvious choice.
Can I just add to a point he was making, and you were asking about the catalyst point, right? I think one of the most defining points is not even a year away in our mind. It's about 7 to 8 months away is when, from a video perspective at least, BARC, which is the industry body for measurement, for those who don't know, BARC measures TV ratings. It's an industry body between advertisers, broadcasters, and agency, is taking this project of measuring digital ratings, right? And digital ratings, digital video ratings, probably first time in the world, you will actually have Facebook, YouTube, Hotstar, Voot, everybody on this table who are actually large video advertisers, being measured by the same body which is measuring TV and allowing people to do a media plan across TV and digital together. So the big gap he talks about of people consuming, but the money being this, will shift, in my mind, quite dramatically as one single momentum piece. And of course, then it'll grow from there on.
That's quite interesting. Yeah, I would agree to that. Gaurav, the next question was to you, which is, you're among the big OTT guys in town. How would you segment consumers in the OTT space?
So, probably just want to preface that with one piece, that if internet is mobile today, it's mobile and we are a video player. It's in mobile in a market with 95% homes being single TV, right? So often people talk about mobile being the second screen. Mobile is often the first screen for pretty much everybody in the house except for one, right? So when we segment people, we segment from point of view of not saying that my customer is only A or B, because whom is primary screen. Actually, it's primary screen for most people, except for the person who's taken the TV at that point in time. To that degree, we have taken an approach to go from cradle to the grave, really, practically, in terms of coverage. So we start with 2 to 10 and probably the only large game in town with the kids play, where Voot Kids, which sits inside an app on Voot, is like the Hulu of this market, which has not only our content, but even our competitors' content sitting in one place on kids. And kids are digital natives, right? For them, the first screen is actually mobile. You take a 1-year-old in your arm and take him to a TV screen, he'll do this, because that's what he used to. So kids as a big play, with our reality and our programming that we do only for digital, creating original series, it becomes the youth and there again it becomes the first jobbers. So you take up 14, 15 to about 30, and then of course the huge catch-up audience that we get, people who, because there are very few DVRs besides your company which provides DVRs. Really, there's no other significant game in town. So India probably is the only market where people can largely catch up only online, what they miss on television. India is one of markets where internet channels but only 2 hours and 25 or 2 hours 30 minutes of viewing on TV compared to 4 or 5 hours of the markets. So they want to watch all the content, they watch online, and single TV homes, as I mentioned to you. So they catch all of that up on our services. So we look at a very wide segment of audiences, but each content piece is then figured for that segment really. The belly of the audience, 70% of audience is below 30 years of age.
So you just answered my next question,
Yeah.
which was this was the most
Yeah.
lucrative.
So the belly of the market tends to be between 16, 17 to 30, and that's because that's where the maximum internet users are. But if you look at segmentation on each show and each property, our soaps will have a 80% female skew as compared to our digital originals having a 22 to 30-year-old audience, male-female combined. Or our reality shows like Roadies will have a 85% male skew. So it sort of moves around. But the interesting point in this is that, and his numbers obviously are mind-boggling. But even for somebody like us, which has 25 to 27 million monthly active users, we are consumed in 1,500 cities. So it's not just the metros, it's not just the top 30, 40 towns. And we're just getting started as a market. So I think digital video is becoming so mainstream now that it's a matter of time where you have to look at it in the direction of television.
So my next one is to Zulfikar. People say VOD is a 1,400 crore kind of a market. Is that really 1,400 crores of ad revenues and subscription revenues, or just ad revenues, or all of subscription revenues? What's your viewpoint on where's the revenue coming from in the space?
I think all of us agree over here on the panel that just about the tip of the iceberg right now as far as India is concerned and this business is concerned. Currently, it's largely driven by ad revenue, majority of it. There are very few players who are going the S-board model. I mean, we've got the international players, Netflix and Amazon doing that. It's a hybrid model. We follow freemium. Part of the content is free, and large part of at least our content is behind the paywall. Hotstar has also just introduced a paid service. Again, still early days. I think, and there's a great feeling that India people don't like to pay. And Gaurav and I've been on many panels, and we keep on saying that people in India want everything for free. From the chair that I sit on, yes and no. A lot of the responsibility lies on us also as platform owners and content creators. The history of our organization is that we are a film company, and the one thing that people in India have gone every Friday and paid for is a film ticket. Typically in all other spheres of life, you're looking for a pass, you're looking for a freebie. But film ticket is something that, people have gone and said, okay, let's go, and they'll come out on Friday, they'll curse the movie, but again next Friday, so they're used to paying for content. And we believe that, all of us, all the stakeholders in us, we must continue that trend. It's about conditioning the people to actually pay for content. It gives us great ammunition to actually go and invest in the business, go and invest in content. Otherwise, we are asking for some serious, business issues that, at our end. So people, we should get people to condition them to pay, and we're already seeing it. You look at Netflix or you look at Hotstar, when they've got Game of Thrones behind the paywall, people have gone and subscribed to it.
Yeah.
It's a function of what kind of content that we dish out. And one of the biggest things that I think, which is from a landscape point of view, consumption of availability, people like us who've grown up watching, started with Doordarshan and then cable TV and DTH and all that. Consumption of availability is changing into consumption by choice. And we've just about gotten started now, There's so much of content that's coming through. And all of us, the guy or the people who create the most compelling content, people will pay them for it.
Sure,
people have a mind.
I second that, because even at Tata Sky, the bread and butter is subscription revenues.
Yeah.
Where do you think, when this market would slightly mature, or let's think of a specific time horizon of, let's say, 5 years hence, would subscription revenues and ad revenues settle down as a percentage for the OTT space?
Yeah, I think subscription model is the long run. It's as simple as that. We would wish it to be in the short run, coming to a maturity stage, but it's a long run game. In a short run, yes, advertising, because the businesses have to fund. They need the money to keep on reinvesting in it, and I think the ad revenue really goes a long way in doing that. But in the long run, what is also happening is, typically when you look at some of the other evolved markets, the developed markets from a content or a platform point of view, what the journey they did in probably 4, 5, 6 years, we'll end up doing it in a couple of months, if not couple of months, couple of quarters, So that's the rate of change. So if you want me to put a finger and say that 5 years or 6 years, I think it'll be slightly faster for people who play in the subscription game, but with a big caveat. If you don't create content which inspires people and people aspire to consume, you can't just push any piece of content down their throat. They're going to push back now. And we're seeing it, and we were just discussing before we came on that even Salman Khan, you look at it. In a country like India, when a Salman Khan film can't do well in the box office, it's a sign that the consumers are not going to just consume anything that you dish out to them. So subscription will come into play for people who create amazing content.
The next one is to Paula. At Tata Sky, we see a lot of action in regional content, growth of regional channels, growth of regional HD. What's happening in the OTT space in regional sphere?
Yeah. Well, right now I have to say that, especially from my perspective, I'm talking about it from Marathi content, because we've been making Marathi content now for the last year and a half, and everybody I work with is coming from the fringes of the Marathi film and television industry and getting into the digital space because of that. What has happened is that with the increasing internet penetration into rural India, you know that in the next 5 years it's growing in a rate of like 18% per year, whereas English consumption is growing at say 3% per year now. So you know that what's going to happen is as more internet penetration goes into rural India, you're also going to get more and more regional segmentation based on language groups, right? Because especially in Marathi, Maharashtrians prefer to consume content in Marathi over English, and that ratio is 71%. 71% of Maharashtrians prefer to consume content in Marathi over English, and they also consider it to be a more reliable source of information, say for news and whatnot. So what you're going to see is, honestly, if you can support a Marathi or a Bengali or you know, a Tamil film industry, you can support these regional languages in television, there's definitely going to be a market for it in OTT and straight-to-video service. Because not only is the cost of producing that content much less, but the demand and the growth for that content is going to only increase over the next few years. Because right now you go to a movie theater and you can see Marathi films competing with Hindi and English films in the box office week on week. And still Marathi films are turning a profit. And people are choosing to watch Marathi films over, say, the latest, you know, Planet of the Apes or a Salman Khan film. So while you have markets choosing to consume regional languages in traditional media, that's only going to increase in digital as rural digitalization
Let's
continues.
dwell a bit more about it. You talked about digital first kind of releases or content releases. And let's talk in the specific case of Marathi. Is the market big enough to sustain digital first release, or does it need the wings of going on other mediums such as TV?
See, right now, probably, I think most producers would choose to continue with a traditional theater-first release, but what has already started changing is that television syndication is becoming the third step when it comes to film distribution, rather than the second step. First step is theatrical, second step used to be then television syndication, and then whatever else you can manage to get your hands on after that, if anything. But as television has sort of reduced the amount of film purchases and whatnot over the last couple of years, and Amazon and Netflix have started purchasing regional language films. So Amazon has already started purchasing Marathi films. Netflix, I believe you can find a couple of them there in Marathi. It's now becoming the second choice. So you do theatrical first, then you go to digital, and then after that you look at your television syndication. So that's already shifted. And the Marathi film industry produced, in 2016, produced roughly 200, 250 films and released 104 in 2016. So you have all of these films releasing. I mean, I'm from Canada, and the Canadian film industry puts out the same amount of films as the Marathi film industry for various reasons. But so Marathi film industry, they can certainly sustain themselves. And there's a huge bank of unreleased and very good unreleased films that are coming out. And they're not getting television syndication, they're not getting theatrical releases. And I know, for example, say YouTube and other platforms like this are strongly trying to encourage these smaller Marathi producers to explore releasing their content online, because it's been a few years and the market demand has passed. So you might as well go online and get whatever advertising revenue from it you can.
Sure. So I'll come back to you on this topic because that's a very interesting one. But in the meanwhile, I'll ask Gaurav of how much of hinterland consumers actually view digital content in the form of entertainment or news or whatever.
Yeah, so segueing from regional content and what's happening there. So about 20 to 25% of our entire content consumption currently is in 3 languages, which is Kannada being the largest, Marathi next, and Bengali third. And we are just getting started with Tamil and so on. So my personal belief is that in the next 3 to 4 years, the biggest growth is going to come from regional languages. And that's when platforms and providers like us will not just move from putting regional content as is after television to doing original, plus changing our UIs to local language, plus making it voice enabled, because there are more people actually watching video than who can read. So if in probably the only part of the world where print is growing, and thanks to regional print, shows the power of regional languages there. So I think Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, Marathi, and Bangla will really explode the industry. Coming to the point of hinterland, I think from what we see right now, majority of consumption is urban, not rural, except for about 7 to 8% probably. But 1,500 cities makes it fairly deep. So if I look at top 40 cities that give me about 70% of my consumption, but 30% of my consumption comes from, on an overall basis, from the rest of the country.
The not top 40 cities.
It's not top 40 cities. And the interesting part here is the Hindi, and the reverse of what we see on regional languages is also Hindi. And you see the amount of Hindi consumption coming in from Tamil Nadu, from Andhra, from Karnataka and Kerala is substantial. Now, Zulfi made a very interesting point about the on-demand demand piece and not availability piece. If anybody who understands the cable structure here, cable industry structure, realizes that besides DTH providers, most cables, providers in South India don't necessarily carry all Hindi channels, and people don't have access to all the Hindi content. But there is a serious amount of demand of that content. So a very interesting interplay of languages happening here, where you're actually seeing language really going across. And the other big opportunity on regional language really is not just the India opportunity, it's the diaspora opportunity. Besides the large 30 million Indians outside India, around the world wanting content in their language, and not all of them only want Hindi. If you go to the Middle East, it's largely Malayalam. If you go to Malaysia, it's Tamil. If you go to US, it's Telugu. And if you go to Israel, there are 50,000 to 70,000 Marathi speakers, and who really want Marathi content. So I think the opportunity is really large on regional, and traditional television, because of its constraints, sometimes can't enable that in every part of the world.
I'm tempted to ask, is the content mix the same across genres?
No, it's not. It's not. So actually, it's an interesting point. I think while we all at one end want BARC to measure digital and all pieces, BARC also results into one kind of a very different play. So if 30,000 meters have to measure 183 million homes and give you a reflection, like any research, it will give you only the center of plate, the middle. What happens with that is that the fringes or the edges on both sides get left out, which means in our estimation, 20 to 30 million Indians on the top end, including many of us here and most of you there, don't necessarily always watch what we program ourselves. So if I put in the room, how many of us actually watched a Hindi general entertainment channel in the last 30 days? It'll be a very few number. And why is that? And of course, we'll all watch a KBC or a Big Boss and all of that, but the dramas, we don't necessarily always go and watch. And the reason for that is that we're actually programming that for the ratings, and the ratings give the ad revenue, and this is a construct of the market the way it is. Now, what is happening with that is that while we all love Nagins, because they make all the money for us, or the big shows on GECs in Hindi and regional, the top 20 million people actually are getting disconnected and saying, this is not for me. And they want different stories. And yeah, they can go to a Game of Thrones and House of Cards, but they want to watch their own stories in their own languages, right? Yeah. And that's where the original content on digital is coming. It's the same thing what actually a multiplex did to a 1,000-seat theater. When you are 1,000-seat theater, you have to make every movie as a musical, masala, dance, comedy, Ram Leela, right? But when you had a plex, you had to fill only 100 seats. You could actually now make segmented cinema. Exactly that is happening on digital original content, because you're actually creating content now to appeal to this guy. Of course, there's a large audience for catch-up and reality shows and everything else, and that's belly of the market. But what we're talking about now is the emergence of that segmented content piece, stories in your language, your own emotion coming into play, premium content. They cost you more on a per minute basis than television does. They're all outdoor sets. They're not amortized over 300 episodes or 3,000 episodes. They're fine, top-end actors, great scripts, mostly film writers. But you're already seeing the emergence of that. And that's really the big change which is happening on digital.
To add on to that, actually, if I can, a bit of anecdotal evidence. Say, my channel, Bharatiya Digital Party, we make original Marathi content in comedy and music right now. 13% of our audience is from outside of India. And as you were saying, your sister in San Francisco, we have people contacting us from outside of India saying, this is the first time I've actually enjoyed watching content in my own language.
Yeah.
So because what we do is we always like to make content that we ourselves would like to watch.
Yeah.
Even though I'm non-Indian and non-Maharashtrian, I enjoy our content. And that is, our primary target, is to reach out to these people who've not been served content that they can relate to. And that is where we started our niche. And from that niche, we've got our unique audience, which brand sponsors and advertisers are willing to pay to reach out to, either through YouTube or through sponsoring content. And because we're making native language content, I can speak from personal experience. I know that many national level brands are starting to target their markets in regional areas. Say, like a large car company is now targeting a Maharashtra group and making content only for them, that kind of stuff. Same with food and these big multi-product sort of companies. And you know that they are changing their tactics based on the evidence that they're seeing from the consumers also. So not only through the advertising, but the content consumption, it's really going into a more regional space. And that is giving us opportunities as independent content creators to make stuff in our own voice.
Sure. Zulfi, you've got some of the best regional libraries too. Are you excited about, looking out for some really edgier titles in regional languages? Does that make all the difference?
The first part I can comment on. The second part is a thing that all content creators keep on discussing, the edgier part of it, Yeah, I mean, we've got content in 10 different languages now. We saw Elite Trends and we thought there was a great opportunity for us to become a truly pan-India platform, something that television could not do. A television channel could not have multiple language shows in one channel, But as a platform, technology gives us that opportunity to become, to have multiple languages, and then as Gaurav was talking about, segmented content curation, So yeah, that's something that we've gone ahead and done. Large part of us staying above the Vindhyas, we have this bias that India is Hindi, and Hindi speaking, but it is not. And especially from a film and content production point of view, these markets have evolved. In fact, some of the other markets inspire Bollywood films. The Malayalam market, the Tamil, Telugu, all these markets, Marathi, yeah. Bengali, the kind now Punjabi coming through, some of the content that's created there is phenomenal. I mean, this Friday there's a release of a movie show, Mangal Sadhan, brilliant reviews I've been reading. Is actually inspired from something that was done in Tamil Nadu, and done 4 or 5 years ago. So the other markets have evolved, at a very good speed, and I think it's just, an opportunity to merge all of it that on a content on a platform where everyone has access to multiple choices. Bahubali is the biggest hit in the recent past. It's not a Hindi film. We all know that. So there is great opportunity. On the edgier part of it, that's a sword that hangs by our neck. I think everyone says edgy content, but what is edgy?
Yeah. Actually, it's not. It's not about edgy content
absolutely.
Anymore. In fact, the regional markets are getting turned off by super edgy content
totally
because
agree.
they can't watch it with their families.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what they're used to doing, family viewing. And what they're really looking for is more relatable content.
That's right. No, in fact, the interesting part about the piece is that when digital video was 10 million or 10 million users or 15 million users, the first users were typically very young, probably college, male in metros and all, and everybody thought the formula was just put the 4-letter words, little more sex and sleaze, and you'll have a good digital show. Probably 2015, maybe that was the case. Digital video is 150, 200 million people using every month. Facebook, YouTube, Hotstar, us, Eros, what you're doing. I think it's very wide. What you need is relatability, you need pace. Because you understand one big difference between Netflix and what we do on mobile. When you take Netflix, you're sitting at home on a TV set and you are paid already $10 and you're not going to pick up your beer and popcorn or whatever else and watch a series where you give probably 3 episodes for you to get into a series. Netflix's own research says that people who get hooked onto a series by watching at least 3 episodes. When you're watching on mobile, this device is, you will not spend more than 20 minutes before you get an email, a WhatsApp ping, a Facebook ping, a call, whatever. Now, therefore, the construct of content needs to change to make sure that your 95% people are using on mobile, which means that in the first 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, I have to get you hooked on to the story, the characters. I have to pace it. I can't have a TV series like pace with 3 or 4 scenes in 22 minutes. I need to have 7 or 8 scenes. I need to have probably 18 or 20 people casted in those scenes as compared to 7. And the whole construct needs to change. So I think content creators are learning, and all of us are learning there, and nobody has the formula. But we are quickly figuring it out. It's not about edgy, it's about the construct of that content. It's about relatability. It's now going to be even going forward about not interesting themes where you're not just, even fantasy for example, but the point is the pace, the connection has to be there. And it's not just about being edgy.
So, question now is to Vidya, that with this kind of action happening, with this kind of super concentrated work and abundance of good quality content, if we had to look at the surfing and let's say the internet and the app surfing behavior in the coming years, how would that change? Any quantitative analytical perspective on that?
Sure. So, as I made my first point, it's internet is mobile, right? Which means all your norms of desktop and what probably all of us grew up was as internet will change, right? So it's an app-based ecosystem, right? He needs to find his way into the top 10, 15 app on the mobile phone. He needs to find his way into that. She needs to find on YouTube or eventually if she gets into OTT, she needs to find her way into that, right? So because the top, so that's one part. So it's an app-based ecosystem, right? The second piece is video. There's an estimate that 2020 in all internet, 75% of internet traffic is going to be video, regardless of small, large. So it's app-based ecosystem. It's very video-led. It will be mobile, and you need to be very conscious of all of that to kind of form your marketing plan, or for the folks over here to build that part, right? So you need a discovery platform. You need something which is of a scale, right? So these are so search typically kind of doesn't work, right? Like, because if you want to book a ticket on a desktop, you look for you do Mumbai, Delhi ticket, etc. Here you will go already on an app. If you want to book a movie ticket, this the works, right? So the ecosystem is going to be very app skewed, very video led, and you got to be, these two things need to be kept in mind, and you need to kind of be part of it, right? Which means you need to get how to make good video depending upon who you are. If you're a marketer, so we spoke enough about the content part, right? From a non-commercial content perspective, which is like an entertainment piece, right? But for a marketer to kind of find the audience to slot it in, they also need to be on video, but they need to keep the mentality of 30-second video away, right? Because for all the while it's been asset first and consumer, because you have a medium which is television where you force an individual to watch whatever your content is, your ad is. Even if he or she skips the channel, goes somewhere else, he will encounter ad, and the idea is to catch him within that period, right? So that 30-second mindset of asset first goes away, because your new remote control is your thumb, which means you got to be compelling, and you can't, so that changes the whole piece, right? If it is thumb, if it is compelling, and it is still video, which means you have to rethink the whole thing. So you have to be consumer first, which is the right thing to do in any marketing parlance, than asset first, right? So summarizing on that, right? It's mobile, it's video, it's app based, it's consumer centric, which means, so typically let's take a TVC, right? For the 30-second, you're telling story up to 26, 27 second, and last 1 or 2 seconds, you reveal the brand. And that's a way, because you're forcing him or her to watch the TV. That can't be, right? Because your attention span potentially is even smaller than goldfish, right? We make a kind of example of goldfish as a benchmark. Human beings probably, given the mobile, because they can, it's even lesser than that. So you need to make that impression, right? You can't go with your own formula. You have to adopt to that, and that kind of things you need to be aware of. Which means for you to be part of the app, you need to be very agile. You need to be technologically savvy. So all those things come into picture, and you need to be there where consumers are, because you need to be discovered, right? The discovery part is extremely critical, because otherwise so imagine the number of OTTs which will happen. It's like just over here there are 2 strong, there is Hotstar, there is Netflix, there is Amazon Prime, and then there will be more, right? Now, how do I, as a consumer, I'm not going to go and look for them. They need to come to me. And that's where the discovery part comes into picture. So you need to be ready for that. So these are various consumer trends, changing things which a marketer needs to keep in mind for the mobile consumer.
I think we just to say, I think today, yes, mobile, and one interesting change is also going to happen, which we need to all keep in mind, and this will interest you more as Tata Sky, is that in the next month or 2 months, when you start seeing high-speed broadband at home becoming a reality, and when we're going to look at that over the next 4 or 5 years, it may not be as big as 400 million in mobile, but if you have 50, 60, 70 million people actually streaming video on their large screens at 100 Mbps plus with a 300 gig capacity in a month at least at 500 rupees, give or take, or $1,000, what you watch and how you discover and what you do with the linear television itself is going to change so dramatically. So, and that's the other large opportunity piece, and I know you guys are doing a lot of work in that space, but that's the interesting play which is additive to what Vidya is talking about. And then the marketeers have to really rethink their plans of saying, how I build brands on television, to saying I want to build brands on video right across.
I would agree to that. And coming back to Paula, independent content marketers like you, content creators, do they have a greater say in the market than before, or is it still the domain of big media houses and then the breadcrumbs go to the independent marketers in terms of the revenue pie?
In terms of revenue, it's yes and no. Like it's yes. Sometimes it is the bigger people. Sometimes it is the independent content creators, depending on the size of your audience. So for the last couple of years, we've been fostering our little niche audience that we have in internet, like in our YouTube subscribers and our Facebook likes on our page. And now we've recently put on 3 more platforms, Deco, Indian Movie Friend, and this other FBF Prime. These 3 people are also paying per view for the content. And where these independent content creators, say like a YouTube star like VideoVox or BBK Vines, they have their power in their market, in their viewers. In fact, as you were saying, talking about assets and consumer being things to look at differently, when it comes to independent online content creators, they are the same thing when it comes to revenue making. Our viewers, they are actually what we are selling. When it comes to the major revenues, when we come to brands, I mean, majority of the money that is going to be made is through brand sponsorships and product placements and tie-ins and that kind of stuff. That is still the driving revenue factor that is happening in the digital space with independent creators, because these are people who are starting out making content on YouTube and Facebook because they don't have the infrastructure or the investment to build their own OTT platform. And they don't have that money, which, say, an Amazon or these people entering the market have to set up their own OTT platforms. Probably what's going to happen over the next few years, I predict, is that you're going to start getting a split in your content creators. And what's going to happen is right now you have many independent content creators who are making, web series, high-value, fictional, serialized content for a digital distribution only. And they're putting it up on YouTube and whatnot through the wonderful ad agencies who are putting their brands into the content. As OTT platforms gain more and more traction, video on demand or advertising based, the people who are able to make this kind of engaging content are going to start taking their content to these platforms. Because then you don't have to have the headache of getting the brand placements, you don't have to do that, and you get to make the content you want. So these people will gradually shift over to these platforms.
Absolutely.
And those who are making their own low-cost content, say the vloggers and the sketch video makers, they are going to continue making their stuff on YouTube, for example. And now Facebook, of course, you're coming up with your own platform, Watch. They're going to keep on working on these smaller platforms because they have all of the freedom. Their content is not high production value. And they have so much strength in their audience, not necessarily their content. So, whether it be a reaction video or a haul video or unboxing. These people have audiences based on their personalities, not on the content that they're creating. So you are gonna, right now it's all sort of put in the same box. It's all digital, independent content creators. But it is gonna start shifting, where the more high value production and storytellers, they are gonna start going to OTT, at least in my opinion, that's what I think.
Yeah. Actually, the interesting part about what I was mentioning is, I don't know if this group knows what 1 million views is worth on YouTube, and it's a very interesting thing. So 1 million views on, and people chase views, right? Everybody chases views. 1 million views on YouTube will get a content creator, and Paula, correct me if I'm wrong, forget the brand placements where the large money comes from, just from advertising, 30,000 rupees at best, if you're lucky. That's it, simple math. 200 rupees CPM, that's 20 paisa per view, per 1,000 views. Multiply that, 30% inventory fill at best, and then 55% share of yours. That's the math. So if you don't cross 1 million views on a video, you will not make more than 30,000 rupees. And you can't make any content in that. So you have to go and actually get brands to place in it to actually make any sort of method to the madness of creating content.
Yeah. And the real storytellers do not want to start making content which is
linked to
for brands.
For brands first. And that's where the challenge lies.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a common question, but let me ask by starting with Zulfi. Tell me your best kept secret of marketing your content.
Sorry,
Your best kept secret of how you market your content.
Just create good content. It's as simple as that.
Now that you've created good content.
Yeah.
Your best
No,
kept secret.
yeah, I mean, listen.
Put it on Facebook.
Yeah,
just he's a friend here, he does everything for us.
Platforms. But with technology, the consumer today is technology enabled, and he gets a whiff, even if you give that person a 10-second, fleeting glance, if he gets it, they get a whiff, and there's so much of buzz around it. So with technology, social media, all of these things happening, it's very easy. But the trick over there lies that, you need to have good content. It's as simple as that, yeah. And I think the problem in India, and I think we were on a particular platform, we are talking about creating regional content and things like that. And we've got an ambitious target at ourselves. To be very honest, we want to create content which can be exported to the world. Why should only Indian diaspora outside India watch it? I mean, in India, India Rising, this, Digital India, Make in India, all of that is fine. But are we saying that with the rich heritage that we have, what is Game of Thrones? It's a universe that's created. If you look at the Indian mythology, we've got bigger universes. Yeah. We've got more fascinating stories. It's just that for whatever reasons and limitations, we've not been able to we've not been able to do justice to content that the rest of the world should watch us. And, we've embarked on a journey that at least I can talk about my company, yeah, that we are investing in content, we are creating universe. I think we are one company which is invested in in-house writers. We've got a writers team, 18 people, youngsters. Nobody is more than 27 years old. And some of them writing for the first time. We've got a writer's room. Go create your stories, because people like us, we probably don't understand what we keep on talking with the next, and Gaurav actually touched upon something very interesting. Voice. We are still used to typing for search. The next billion that will come through,
all voice.
They're not going to type, they're just going to talk. So, we need to start preparing for that generation now.
Lieutenant Gaurav at Viacom, best kept secrets of the best content marketing exercise that you've done.
Yeah, I think after creating the good content and great content piece, I think discovery is the biggest challenge, because people say digital made discovery easier, it made more difficult because you have infinite choice. So how do you attack the content? What goes behind it? We probably, on every content piece, I have 87 to 88 tags, and then I work with obviously large gateways like Facebook and YouTube and Google and everybody else to then discover and use a mix of what we do on television with 500 million people that we reach on our channels, plus all the hundreds of millions who are outside. But I think the thing is that you have to be very clear that everything will not appeal to everyone. So we don't market Woot. We market every content piece individually. Today, our automated marketing, marketing communications engine that we have developed with both YouTube and Google and with Facebook, which is first in the world in many ways, which creates, at the last count, 84 to 88,000 video assets individually promoted on Google Display Networks, on Facebook, and so on. So every content piece has an individual creative which goes out. We publish 13 to 14,000 hours a year of new content. Today we have about 42,000 hours of content. That means 89,000 pieces of content. For me, roughly 60% of my library gets consumed every day. That means people watch at least one stream of 45,000 assets on my platform every day. So we don't necessarily believe we have to market only Woot, which is good for building brand, but we are marketing content, and we're marketing content online, on air, with our partners. And I totally agree with the fact discovery is a big challenge. Therefore, it's not about me getting an agency and working then with Maxus and Leo Burnett's of the world to create individual display units. We have to use machines to do that. If I have to make 90,000 assets every day, every refresher, every often, and in different languages, I can't do it physically. So that's why we work with the best in the world to do that, and it works for Vijayadhar and team and his counterparts at Google to do that for us, because then that's how they create this.
And Paula, how would you go about marketing a niche content and the place that you are in?
Yeah, I can tell you from our experience as a YouTube channel, when we launched in April last year with our first show, Casting Couch, with Amay and Nipun, it was amazing the response that we got. You know, we got a lot of media people calling us and whatnot. People started calling us. Now, I'm not saying this like genuinely. People were calling us, you know, pioneers of Marathi web content. But when those articles started coming out, we started having people writing to us and saying, you guys are pioneers, we've made Marathi videos, we've done this, we've done that. And I swear, for 6 months before we launched, we had been searching on YouTube, on Facebook, everywhere. We were looking for Marathi YouTube channels, Marathi series, Marathi sketch. It was almost impossible to find any, you know, made-for-web Marathi content. And we told these people, we tried to find you, but we couldn't. You know,
come now.
We're not calling ourselves pioneers. Other people are, because people have discovered us first. That's all. You know, we also had, you know, the help of a celebrity face and these kind of things to get ourselves out there. And we really, you know, 40% of our views at first were through WhatsApp links. You know, we're pushing it out, we're spamming people with our content. And it takes that kind of effort, especially when you're coming in at a low level, to get people to discover you. So content is extremely important, but even today, there's many new Marathi YouTube channels which have come up, which are hardly getting, you know, 1,000, 2,000 views per video, even after 4 or 5 months, because they just don't know about tagging. They don't know how to market themselves on other platforms apart from YouTube. And when you search for them, they're not showing up, or they don't have good engaging thumbnails. So it is actually a very fine balance between your good content, which is mandatory. You have to have that first. But you also really, as you said, you really do need to know how to make people discover you.
And it's very different in the digital world than the physical world. It's broadcast, you know, we almost land like two companies in one with Viacom 18, the broadcast company and the digital company. It's a very different mindset.
I would agree.
So so far we have been evolved onto two models, right? Taking on the same. There is an intent model and there is an interruption model, right? People come to you and search for it, and then you serve your ad, or you serve your content, and then you stop people from watching what they came there for, and that's where the discovery model comes into picture. That's the key of that, right? And whether it's using programmatic pieces, targeted communication, right creatives, just be consumer centric to kind of be available when they are out there.
In the interest of time, I'll just stop the discussion here and just open the house for questions coming to our panelists. So any questions coming from the house? Yeah. Any mic?
Bring the mic there.
Hi, thanks for this panel discussion. It was really fruitful. Just wanted to get your thoughts in the initial phases currently. Is this digital or the OTT platforms cannibalizing TV consumption by any way, or right now consumers are consuming both mediums increasingly together?
Can I take that? Since I'm part of the only broadcaster and OTT in the room. I think India is a very interesting and market, not an or market. Absolutely. Yeah. Right? I think let's look at, before you answer your question, we talked briefly about free and pay as well, right? Look at what these guys are doing, magical stuff on the pay side, but there's a free dish doing equal amount of growth on that side. So pay and free are going together both, right? Similarly on digital as well. And I think when it comes to digital versus television, I think it's not versus right now. Probably in certain segments and certain audiences which grow up on a world of devices, which is any screen is my device anytime, right? They get naturally to any screen which comes up, children, youngers. But I think the headroom for growth for TV is still very, very high. So let's look at the numbers. 183 million homes with television, total 260 million homes in the country. So there is 70, 80 million homes to go for TV to get to. Right? 2.5 hours of viewing in India or 3 hours of viewing on television. Market worldwide, you have 4.5 hours is the average. The 1.5 hours balance can come on OTT, can come on television, can come anywhere else, right? A lot of the issues we had on television viewing in the past, if you leave urban versus rural, have been related to power. There's no electricity in many parts of the country. So I think for the next few years, there is headroom for both to grow. Certain audiences, certain segments, certain kind of content will grow much more in one than the other, which is obvious. But there's no panic buttons of TV being overnight being obliterated, right? And we have to use, and in many ways, look at where the content creating ecosystem is coming from as well, right? A lot of film guys move to television guys don't want to do stuff on digital and so on. So I think in many ways, all three industries, the film, the television, and the digital, are going to go hand in hand, work with each other for foreseeable future. And going forward, my friend, TV will itself change. In 5 to 7 or 8 years, every screen will be connected. When you are no longer talking about a linear program television, which, my company with colors will send out to you, you will make your own colors, right? We'll create content for you. Voot will give you that opportunity. So with Hotstar, Eros, Facebook video, whatever you might have. So I think TV itself, TV as a hardware will always be there. TV's format will get fused with digital, because digital currently is currently only mobile, like you said. But going forward, it will also be on a television screen and so on. So I don't think there's panic stations for anybody who's television really at an overall level, but certain segments are moving very, very fast. So if you look at the English consumers, they are actually, necessarily watching mostly on demand and watching it, screen to the devices or flick to the devices, or as you would call it. Kids are doing all of that right now. Youth are getting more into it. But yeah, still there is headroom for both to grow.
Yeah, and just to add to what Gaurav was talking about, start from this fact of there's just 2.5, 3 hours of TV being watched in this country. You still got some 1 or 2 hours more to even catch up to the average of what the rest of the world is doing. The common man on the street. You've got enough headroom and enough new consumption occasions that have come up because of the OTT platform. Earlier, you wouldn't have thought of entertaining yourself in a train or in a taxi or in a bus, or while dad is watching news, let me watch something else. Those things have come up.
Yeah.
Hence, both of these will grow, and OTT hours will add like an icing on the cake to the TV consumption hours.
And there's one more interesting market construct piece. 6 or 7 large companies in India own 90% of the IP, right? So the 5 large broadcasting companies or content companies, Star, Sony, Zee, Viacom, 18, Sun, creators like Eros, Disney, UTV, and a few others. So when all of these companies own all the majority IP, and there are obviously great creators coming in, 5 of them have very large broadcasting interest. In fact, India is the only market where you get so much of AVOD, premium AVOD in the world. America doesn't have premium content on AVOD. So I think, in my mind, it's best for us to disrupt our own business in a way that somebody else doing it. But we're very conscious of the fact that there is an audience who currently watches only on what he provides, and they are going to use this as addition. And we work with that. And of course, people will move. They will move and the mediums will fuse. Tata Sky in 5, 7, 8 years may be a very different business compared to what it is today.
Okay. Other questions?
My observation along with the question is, as Zulfi quite rightly pointed out, that in India we seem to have a reluctance to get into subscriber where we have to pay for our content. And you quite rightly pointed out, on the big screen, people are more willing to pay on the big screen rather than pay for something that they feel they can get immediately. And as the big screen became television, as a small screen gets smaller and smaller in the term of perception. Now, I have always wondered that all the content is extremely good and is thought out, and all of us want to have great content. However, I find that, could it be that if subscription became a bigger player, that there'd be less advertising to disturb the way we see our content, no matter what format, except for the movies. On television, today if you want to watch a feature film, it's a 5-hour process. I believe as time goes on, even on your small screen, it is going to be limited amount of, as Gaurav quite rightly pointed out, is going to be. So I would like to hear from you as to if that is related in a way, or would it help the way we see things without the kind of predominant advertising that obviously is required?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and at least in the business that I run, we are very clear of not taking advertising. We believe that the time has come when the consumer should see content the way content creators make it. You know, we are willing to invest in that business. She was talking about the challenges, and she alluded to that also. But yes, I think we are very clear on that. The consumer experience, he talked about being consumer-centric. All of this, you know, not having interruptions, not having too much brands filled into it. And like you rightly said, on TV, if you watch a normal Hindi film, it's 5 hours. It's not a great experience, you know. And I don't think so. The younger generation that's coming up and the way they are consuming content, they really necessarily have the patience for that. So at least from my business point of view, we are very clear there are no advertisements, no ads that we take. We are willing to invest in it. As I said, again, the subscriber business is a long-term model. It'll come into play, and a large part of it will depend on what I create. If I create good content, I'm sure people would want to pay for it.
Absolutely, and just to add to that, I mean, at least have a skip ad kind of button, which I saw on YouTube recently. And thankfully, we could get to see the thing by skipping the ad. And, you know, I mean, I just see it from a point of view. I know advertising is extremely important to take things forward. However, yeah.
Yeah, so just, you know, to give devil its due on advertising. And I think, of course, all of us ideally want to watch only content. But one reality we have to also admit is when cable started in this country in 1992-93, with CNN coming in and the Gulf War happening, cable was priced at 200-250 rupees a month. Today, in most parts of India, 24 years later, cable is priced at 250 rupees a month. Everything has gone up by 10, 20, 30 times. And the market construct has been such, for various reasons, and partly all of us will blame for it or not, but that led to the fact that to run a model where you can create quality content or the quality movies or whatever else, because today 45% of the money of many films comes from TV rights. And if you add TV and digital, that's 70% of the money companies like his make, right? And therefore, how do you really make a math work in the interim till you have a model in play where you can run both pieces? And there'll be customers like yourselves who will say, here, take my 200 rupees, don't disturb me with any ad. And there are customers who will say, I don't mind the ads, I'll pay 200 rupees for it. Or I want to get it free, sorry. So I think it's, like I said, India is an and market in pretty much everything. And we need to provide the option. Unfortunately, in television, there is nothing called premium pay in India. Everything was basic pay. Basic pay means at $4 or $3, you will get every channel. HBOs, premium sports, what have you. And that's the market they walked into when they launched DTH. And they're competing with cable who's saying, I don't care, I want to collect my money, not report to the broadcasters. I will take my money, I'm happy with it. Yeah, so And Zulfi made this point, 16 years of his life he sold ad sales, where he actually talked about advertising sales being the biggest thing. And I think we have to do that when our jobs. As consumers, I would say, okay, I would rather not live with ads, but as a businessman, I have to say I have to work with that model for the time being.
Gaurav, but again, is the consumer willing to pay?
Yes, and also, I mean, you know, sorry to interrupt you, also we talk about like a Game of Thrones as always, I hear it as the model of absolutely fantastic content. Now, I mean, when are we going to come to that stage? Because we've watched Game of Thrones, it is uninterrupted, which is part of its charm.
So I actually wanted to continue from where you're saying. And I think, Gaurav, the example you gave of television, you know, it just moved up a little bit. I think for people like us sitting, and we are the stakeholders in this digital OTT business, I think the responsibility lies on us to condition the market. Yeah. Otherwise, if we don't do it, after 25 years, there'll be someone else representing saying this is the same thing that's happened.
No, totally agree. I think and I totally agree with you. And in fact, if you look at in an economic sense, look at what's happening on digital advertising. At least ex-India I can talk about, and India is a little different. But 92% of all advertising dollar on digital is going to two companies, right? Facebook and Google, right? So in India, as broadcasting companies, at content companies, when we create that and we have premium content, we don't want to have a scenario that we don't have a play in that market. We believe that digital video advertising with BAR coming in is going to be a 7,000 crore market in 4 years' time and 5 years' time. And therefore, that's second largest to Hindi GCs, second most valuable for the advertisers, for the brands you put your monies in. So today, I have a Group M, which is the largest agency in the world, their actual digital media head, global head coming in saying, please don't put your content behind the paywall, have both options available. We want alternatives. We can't have a scenario where we don't have alternatives to digital video than to just two companies. And the reality is, we have to run both models. And I am with you, and we have to shape the market for both models. So we will, ourselves, we are working on a model very soon where you'll have our content available both as ad-free and many more bells and whistles at a fee. And for those who don't want to pay, free.
See, net, as I see it,
can I just make a point?
As we see it, even you talk about 25 years or whatever, either the investor in content is paying for money, or the consumer is paying for the money, or the advertiser is paying for the money. Somebody has to pay the salaries. Somebody has to pay the
bills
written to the big stars.
To talents.
So yeah, I think if I had a point of view on that one, it's going to last forever. It's not even about 10 years and 5 years and 25 years. It's always
both models. Yeah. Sorry, Vidya, you were saying something.
No. So very fair and this is one stakeholder which we are not pushing enough, and because ad is a content as well, right? We spoke for last 1 hour of making it relevant, making it accessible, making it something it's personalized, all of that, right? And that's it. Because at the end of it, nobody sits there people want to get entertained, right? Whether it's ad or content in the sense in a non-commercial communication. If marketers don't get that, because the interruption age is over, right? At some point of time, you can't stop somebody and make them watch and then get on to the. If you don't make ads which are personalized, which are relatable, which are relevant, entertaining, and don't take ever to kind of land
medium-centric.
Don't be asset first, because that's the only way I know how to make a story, which is making a 60-second ad, but relevant to the audience, and whether he or she is leaned in, or all of those are critical. Only when that element change, it won't be as painful, because it's relevant to you, right? That kind of, as an additional stakeholder who needs to come to the party to leverage it well and make it less painful.
As somebody who also is in the business of making these ads, apart from selling content to brands for sponsorship, we also have a business of making ads, making digital videos that'll go viral for different brands. That is the biggest hurdle, I think, for any content creator, whether you're making your money through ads or through videos or series or anything. In the end, you are making free or advertised-based content. You do have to, whether it be TVC or anything, you really have to show these agencies that they have ad blockers, they have the ability to skip ads, they will find a way around ads if they don't like it now.
They don't like
there are enough ways to circumvent the ad space.
Yeah.
So you really do have to think differently. And with this disruption, of traditional Indian entertainment through television and films, it is, as you were saying, up to the stakeholders to decide how they want to keep it going. And it is a very unique opportunity that we are all here at this point in time in India, when there is such a massive diversification of revenue streams and different models in which you can make content. And in fact, we're very lucky that we can be here at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said.
On this note, I'll just call it the end of the session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.